So, welcome here to our panel. It's a green panel. We're going to talk about sustainability here today. And we're going to talk about the cloud contribution, not the clouds in the Amsterdam sky, of course, but the data centers and all that stuff, and how it adds or not to climate change. So we're going to talk about strategies. We're going to talk about how to measure. We're going to talk about what's the right mindset you need to implement in your organization to make a sustainable change. We have three fantastic panelists here today. Bleuenn, LeGoffic, maybe just stand up and wave. She's VP Strategy and Business Development at Accedo. Her perspective is sustainability has never been more important than today. Then we have John Anderson, CDN Product Manager at Velocix. His perspective, we need more sustainable video streaming technology. And last but not least, Sebastian Manemann, VP Products and Cloud Solutions at Quortex. Quortex, recently acquired by Synamedia. Vision is that streaming is the place where head-end and CDN will finally meet. Now, what will happen, we'll have each three of them come on stage, give a little 5-minute presentation, and after all the three are finished, I'll call them on stage and we're going to have an interactive discussion. I'd say ladies first. Bleuenn, big applause for Bleuenn LeGoffic. Stage is yours.
Hi everyone, I'm very happy and thank you for getting us on stage to talk about this quite exciting topic, and I will explain why it's of course a bit concerning, but it's also very exciting because this is one of the biggest challenges we have to face across industries, and there's nothing more exciting than a challenge that needs to be addressed. So I'm super happy to be able to share today what's our vision at Accedo. For the ones who don't know about Accedo, we are a video solution provider. We are about 650 people across 17 offices. And we build video solution for broadcasters, operators, and sports organizations across the globe. So in the past months, we have had many discussions around sustainability in media. What does it mean? What does it mean for suppliers? What does it mean for customers? What does it mean for the audience? Okay, what do we want to make out of this transformation? And I do believe that out of those conversations, what we can see is that there is a high interest. There is definitely table stakes here, a challenge that our ecosystems wants to address. We also reckon that our industry has been very agile, right? Capacity to adapt, even if we are, I think, one of the late industry to come to this sustainable and be active in the sustainable transformation. We, however, are so capable of changing and reinventing ourselves in such a fast pace. So this is why I will think that we definitely will be up to the challenge. The challenge is big, but the reward will be outstanding. One of the things that I wanted to just mention, and many of you are probably familiar with the Responsible Media Forum. We know that media companies care and have come together to be able to talk about the sustainable issues and what are the threats and opportunities and how could they nudge the overall industry to move forward. And one of the key things that I want us to remember is that we're not just a technology ecosystem, right? We need to reckon that the power of media is in its influence. Obviously, we're not the biggest, carbon emitters across compared to all of our industries, right? But we certainly are the most influential, and this is where. What's our role as suppliers and customers and the audience taking part in the sustainability transformation, because eventually media can and will become the lead influencer of the sustainable transformation across industries. And I think this is the opportunity. Again, the challenge is big, but the reward will be outstanding for media. So this is why we need to remember why we need to focus on this, why we need to invest on this. And our proposition at Accedo is that while, of course, we're going through our own sustainable journey as a company and trying to make our stakeholders becoming better, try to heal the planet at the same time of our own impact, we also reckon that We are a supplier of a complex and fragmented ecosystem, and we need a supplier to help our customers to actually becoming better in sustainability. And we think that we need to do that, and you will all hear about this through experimentation and partnership. So we are launching this year an initiative to build a sustainable marketplace of video suppliers and video in general term, right? Video technology suppliers by 2025, and we do hope to nudge the industry to come and discuss and experiment with us around the three very important pillars, which are environmental impact, content influence, because it is a key part of the role of the industry, and then audience engagement. So this is what I'm going to be talking a bit about. This marketplace is our role as suppliers, and how should we accelerate our transformation. I will be happy to, after the panel, discuss with each of you that are interested in getting part of this initiative. So thank you.
Thank you, Bleuenn. Yeah, take your notebook. And coming up next, we'll have John Anderson from Velocix. John, the stage is yours. Big applause for John.
Is this thing on? Okay, there it is. So again, I'm John Anderson. I am a product manager at Velocix, really focused on CDN solutions. And so my view on the panel is looking at the convergence of technology, business models, and the ability to merge those in terms of how we address sustainability in cloud environments. At Velocix, just to give you a little input on who we are, we deliver content delivery solutions and ad tech solutions to many of the top tier operators in the marketplace. We have a full array of solutions around CDN, origin, recording, ad tech, and so forth. But key to our discussion today will be the CDN aspect and the analytics in terms of how that applies to the cloud. So when we look at sustainability and what we can do to drive technology, features, business models, we're looking at the capabilities that allow us, one, to understand how we're delivering and how we're measuring that technology. And so key to that is having key insights through analytics in terms of our performance, our saturation in terms of our technology on a deployed cloud architecture, and looking at utilization of resources. Key to that is that we don't over-provision and underutilize those resources, because that equals waste. So one key insight is having those analytics. The other part is having critical CDN architecture that allows us to use the platform of cloud to deliver very efficient video delivery. And with that, we're looking at terms around advanced caching, that allows us to make sure that we are optimizing the use of the resources, we're reducing the number of calls back to an origin, and we're optimizing that footprint as much as possible. We also have, in our technology suite, the ability to look at hybrid cloud scenarios. And so when you think about CDN, where every day you have a peak of usage, which means you need to provision for that peak, but every day there's a valley, and in that valley are unutilized resources. It's having a hybrid model where you can do the peak on the cloud, but keep the optimized resources on spinning media running all the time, so you have less waste on your system. So hybrid cloud's really important. And then looking at multi-CDN and other open caching solutions that can be deployed in cloud environments that allows for more utilization of the resources that are available. And then the other area that we're looking at in terms of sustainable streaming is relative to the supporting technologies. A lot of these are not new. Things like multicast ABR, having a multi-tenant solution that allows for more use of the technology that is deployed. And those are, in a cloud scenario, really structured as SaaS video applications. And so when we talk about all these sustainability initiatives, my perspective is really going to be from a CDN platform provider and how we view cloud, how we look at optimizing our resources, and how we need to focus business model change in order to make our buyers want to intersect with sustainability initiatives so that there's a common ground there. So that's it. All right.
Thank you, John. And Sebastian Manemann from Quortex. Big applause.
So, is it on? Cool. Yeah, so we've been hearing a lot about platforms and CDN now. Quortex as a company is really focusing on the processing part of the video head-end. So we are doing a OTT live streaming platform, and more than that, we build a new technology for live streaming, which we believe in is the way to be really more sustainable when it comes to streaming. This is just a show-off slide. So we just won an innovation award quite recently for our platform. The question that we ask ourselves at Quortex and that we typically also ask audiences when we speak is, who thinks that if I run a OTT channel, a live channel, 24/7, that all of my profiles, all of the chunks that I produce throughout the day are really all watched? Is there a chance that you produce 5 profiles with a million chunks in it and someone is actually pulling all of those? This is not happening. I mean, everyone thinks his content is super pristine and excellent, but guess what? A kids channel at 3 at night is not the most popular thing on earth. So this graph that you see here is based on a real deployment that we have with one of our customers, and it indicates the amount of cloud instances that we allocate to process the exact same amount of channels throughout, I think it is over a few days. And you can see that there is a peak. This customer streams football, so probably it was a very popular football match at the first peak, where we need roughly 30 instances. But at nighttime or when there is not so much matches, you can see that we do the same work with just 10 instances. So we cut the footprint of this whole deployment by a factor of 3. And that is because we asked ourselves initially, what is wrong with our industry? Why are we the last industry on earth that is still operating in a push mode? Because we used to work in broadcast. Broadcast is push only, and it works very well. For OTT streaming, this is not anymore necessary. And we can be super efficient if we look into other industries and the way that they supply goods, because that's what we do at the end of the day. If you think about the car industry, or even a better example, a pizzeria, you're not running into a pizzeria and they have 30 pizzas stockpiled just in case someone wants tuna with onions on it, and you're not eating a cold pizza. Instead, you will go into the pizzeria, you will ask the people to create what you're fancy for, and they will get back with exactly what you asked them for. And this is the very same concept that we apply to the production of actual video streams. And this enables a lot of savings, not only cost savings, but also resource savings. And it changes the perception of cloud. Because a concept like this, a just-in-time concept, you cannot do this in your basement on your own servers. It has to happen in the cloud, and it is the only way that we can be very efficient when processing video in the cloud. That's my take.
Please stay already. Bleuenn, John, please join us here. So before we start our panel discussion, I want to do a little vote with you. Bleuenn, you said something, our industry has been late in addressing sustainability. So I want to hear from you. Has your company embarked on some, whatever shape or form, sustainability activities? So hands up, whose company is doing something in sustainability? Okay, I'd say maybe 50%. And who of you think it's already enough? Good, that's why you're here.
Yeah.
Perfect, so we're not doing enough.
No.
Where can we start? Maybe Bleuenn, where is the right starting point? Where can our industry be better in supporting sustainability? Is it an education role, as you mentioned in your talk? Is it a technology role, as both of you? What's your take?
I think the first and most important thing that other industries have went through is to have a common direction, right? We need to all agree to the same framework of evaluating ourselves and evaluating our progress. And when we started this journey at Accedo, I mean, you wouldn't imagine it's like, okay, so we're not environmentalist experts, so how are we going to pull that off, right? And, gender diversity, okay, that's another topic. And so obviously, it feels like an amount and a pile of things you have to take care as an organization, knowing you don't have the expertise necessarily internally. And you don't necessarily have the budget to just buy consultants, super expensive consultant that will deliver that for you. But what I discovered and with my team and the greater sort of a partner ecosystem is that no worries. There is actually already organization globally across industries that are setting frameworks for us to not only report on our engagement, but make us accountable for it. And they're all behind one big scheme, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. Then under the Sustainable Development Goals, you have the environmental impact led by SBTi and CDP. So Science-Based Target Initiative is a framework for you to set reduction targets. How do you engage yourself in this journey, right? It helps you to make sure that you are accurate in your way that you are evaluating your carbon footprint. And it makes you accountable to reach the net zero by 2050. So when we started this journey, we were not environmentalist experts, and we're still not, but we come to an understanding of what should we do to actually reduce our carbon footprint. And it's very simple. And they got that available to any companies at a very minimum cost and almost no cost for very small companies, at a bigger cost for bigger companies, because it's a social move. And that was the first step. Then I think for us, the greater help when it comes to social impact and towards your community, for me, again, looking for who is the big ecosystem that will help us there, right? And the UN is doing that. So we just got part of in 5 different offices, because we're a global company, so it's actually one of a challenge as well. 5 different offices that are part of an initiative that's called Target Gender Equality, and they are helping us across industries to experiment and learn how to report progress and how to frame our diversity strategy. So all of this, we don't have to build the expertise internally, but what it does is that then it enables those big entities to compare apples with apples, to actually say to the media industry, you're late. The overall tech ecosystem, from the small startup to the biggest one, are not yet engaging themselves completely fully behind those main targets that we need to have. Okay. And I think there is no other way than just starting with this. It doesn't take many efforts. I'm happy to train all of you, if you want, go through this process, because we've done it, and it's not that difficult, and it doesn't come with a lot of cost, but it's a matter of committing and then being accountable for what you're committing over. And I think this is what I think the first move should be.
Okay, so first move, get to the point, yes, we need to do something. There is help. There's even free help, if I understand. So find a framework, and I think there's multiple frameworks, right? So find one that fits for you and just get going. Now, John, you have customers who are already starting to do it. So, and you recently launched your analytics. So that's, I need to be able to measure, right? So how important is it, the measuring, the framework, and setting targets?
Yeah, I think it's critical in terms of actually developing a sustainable model, right? We want to present decisions to operators, even at the buying level, but then at the operational level, in terms of what is the right sustainable choice. Is there a measurement in terms of how we provision, how we operate a system, how we offload content in a multi-CDN environment, whatever those scenarios are, that actually can be driven by a good ecological decision as opposed to just a pure business decision. And so that all starts with analytics. And you have to be able to present those views and pull that data forward so that the people who are actually making decisions that impact the environment know that they're doing so.
Sebastian, your point. You said, okay, we need to do it like the pizza in the auto industry.
Yeah, exactly. No, one very important point that both of you mentioned is accuracy, and I would add credibility of data to that, because when we started, I would say, investigating about the carbon footprint of video streaming, I stumbled across multiple studies that were supposed to indicate the carbon emission, I think, of 30 minutes of Netflix streaming. And I have a very nice graph that was not part of the presentation because it's also a bit depressing. Those studies, I think it were 7 or 8 studies in total, the numbers were completely off.
Yeah.
They were all supposed to indicate the same thing. They were all carried out, I would say, with reasonable effort and not marketing driven. Yet those numbers were off by orders of magnitude. So gaining credible data is absolutely crucial to start anything. I mean, apart from this shifting your workflow to a different model or something, if you really want to assess what is it that I emit and like honest assessment, you have to have credible data, and that's where we are currently really suffering a lot. I mean, it starts with CDNs that just assume the internet to be there
Right.
without consuming any energy. There are cloud providers that, I mean, they are all moving in the same direction, but yet there are no real dashboards that would help you indicate the carbon footprint of your whatever deployment. So it's really difficult to find credible data to start anything from.
Is there a solution? Where do I get credible data? Is it about being honest myself in the first place?
That's a good
Or
point to start
How
with.
do I get there?
Well, the thing is that I totally believe in what you said, that it is only possible if not everyone starts to cook his own soup. We need to find common grounds for measuring. We need to find alliances. I mean, we are a founding member of the Greening of Streaming Alliance, which has the goal to find a numeric value that everyone can agree on at the end of the day. But we need to start there. We need to find common ground to start assessing things.
And may I add, and this is very important in the DNA of greening of streaming, and I think this is exactly what we shouldn't shy away. We're not there to make a marketing buzz, right? So now this is past that, right? We number one rule of greening of streaming is no greenwashing, right? Yeah. So I think we're past that. I'm not worried about this. However, we shouldn't shy away from the experimentation because we're afraid of the credibility of our data. So experimentation is key, being transparent and critic about your own experiments and why do you do them and what's the outcome of it. But do not wait until it's too late to get started. So I really want to emphasize that, and this is the mindset of this industry, that we need to call out again on the capacity to innovate. And the capacity to innovate is primarily because you have the guts to experiment. And you can do like things that are manually done, and not everything needs to be production ready, and not everything, but it needs to be for a certain purpose. And we should make sure that a part of the investment is not about, again, paying consulting firms or things like this, but it's actually dedicating engineering time. It's actually dedicating the focus around, okay, I'm designing a video service for an audience, how I'm going to engage them around those different topics, how I'm going to make the user becoming, active in the sustainable transformation of the media industry. So I think this is another aspect that we need to be back to, the startup spirit, which I know you're still in, and keep continuing on experimenting and not shy away from that.
Okay. But maybe for the education of everybody, we have some big blocks, right? So what are the main sources of carbon emissions in video streaming today? Do we have agreement on what they are? I think we do, even if there might be some different numbers. So maybe Sebastian, what do you think? What are the main sources of CO2 emissions in streaming?
Well, again, it boils down to the question of where do you start measuring and where do you end? Because the first step would to agree are we talking about OB vents that are standing outside the IBC and are causing carbon emission? Is this part of the streaming thing? So we need to define boundaries for that,
Okay.
to answer that question. So what we were focusing on, because it's our expertise when we were assessing data, is we start by the, let's say, transcoding process of a video and then up to the point where we deliver to any kind of player.
Yep.
The odd thing is, everything that we assess, the second someone turns on his 52-inch plasma TV at home, but it just vanishes because this TV kills it all,
Right.
the whole workflow. But if we look at this, it is likely that the wrong usage of infrastructure is causing a big portion of the carbon emission for the, mainly for the processing part of video. So that's the whole starting point of Quortex, was how can we reduce, frankly speaking, we were not thinking about green, but how to reduce costs. But it's a nice side effect. How can we reduce the cost of processing of individual video units? And I know that there is a lot of talk about, is this codec greener than that codec? If I apply better compression efficiency here, how much greener am I? At the end of the day, if you look at the workflow from a very high level perspective, there is no greener codec than the other. You're just shifting the load of more processing versus the load of less CDN capacity and vice versa. So this is not a solution to any assessment here.
Yeah.
John, do you agree? Let's stay with the boundaries that Sebastian said. Transcoding to the player. Is you wrong or inappropriate usage of infrastructure, is that the key driver?
I do think that's the primary driver. And it's really about how do you utilize to the maximum ability the resources available with as few spinning idle resources as possible. And it gets into that sine wave that you have. Every peak you have, you need to deliver against the utilization of those resources to get that streaming out. The unique time we are in today, though, is we seem to have the beginning of the intersection of technology that can support auto-scaling, dynamic capabilities, and the ability to not over-provision to the point that we have in the past, meaning we can deliver the resources necessary to deliver your everyday streaming that doesn't exceed the peak. But the problem with the ability to do so is really tied to some of the commercial models around that as well, right? In order to move that to the cloud and have that auto-scaled and dynamically available and ready means the cloud providers also have a part to play in terms of making egress costs and other aspects sustainable for us to compete with on-prem excessive resources, right? That's a key trade-off that needs to happen in order for us to move forward on this front.
Okay, I'm coming back to the title. Environmental sustainability and the cloud's contribution to tackling climate change. So, do I hear you say that the cloud is the measure to help us save CO2?
I think it's a necessary element, right?
But used in the wrong way, still we produce even more.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? If we're still using cloud resources, but not bringing them offline or removing that processing when it's not necessary, then we're still burning CO2, right? So it has to be dynamic, it has to be auto-scaled, and you have to be able to spin up and spin down resources on demand. And all of that is tied to the technology solutions surround that make it agile, right? And dynamic in nature.
Are the cloud providers giving you the tools that the three of you need to achieve that? Or is there still a way to go?
I don't know yet. Yeah, so I think there's a way to go.
It's a clear yes for us, I guess. It is,
It's a clear yes.
It's
They
a clear
give you the tools?
Yes, our industry, for many, many reasons, perceives the cloud as a complex beast that is never going to be cost efficient and we are wondering constantly how other platforms can operate their stuff in the cloud for the last, I don't know how many, 10, 12, 15 years probably. Yet we still think this is a way too expensive playground for things. It is not. The cloud is the only place where this scaling, because it's all about scaling, and efficiency can happen at the same time.
Yep.
Because if you put yourself in the shoes of a cloud provider, so if I'm now Mr. AWS, my core interest in offering you, or all of you, my capacity is that I want to maximize the usage of this capacity and maximize my revenue and being most efficient on energy, on cooling, on everything. So there is no private data center on Earth, and I mean, I'm having this discussion quite often with customers that love their on-prem stuff, but there is no private data center on Earth that can compete with the measures that all of those cloud providers put in place every day, because it's their revenue. That's how they make money.
Right.
So for me, it's a clear yes.
Yeah.
I think it's also, while I'm not necessarily looking at an overall consolidation of technology, I mean, we're all very happy to have a business that we can drive and thrive on fragmentation. However, you need to see the cloud providers as the common ground, our global resource we can tap into. And I think this is the role that those cloud providers need to take, and I think they are taking that, actually, where they are eventually nudging the resources to be optimized for the purpose of all of us running our services and products and so on. So eventually, not moving to the cloud today is making the decision of not sharing a resource with others, right? And eventually having then you need to be made accountable for that. And I think there is we might want to talk about regulations and so on. But at one point, are the cloud provider with their pay-as-you-grow model, with all the openness in optimization? I mean, how many times I've been in meetings with AWS when they're looking at, okay, we're going to reduce your cost in AWS. Okay, that's a bit weird, right? Don't you want that actually it costs more to me, that I'm giving you more money? No, because if you're successful, I'm successful, right? So with this kind of mindset, we need to see the cloud as being the global. I'm not working for a cloud provider, by the way, just to be clear. But it's very important that we have this kind of mindset, right? So we need to share resources. And the cloud is there for that. And if you're not doing that, you should be made accountable for it. And I think this is the mindset that we need to have, other than there are cool stuff in the cloud happening every day. It's also about our responsibility to choose the right tech. And I think this is a big part of it. And I want to add as well that I think the cloud providers, not only they have that in their DNA, that's great. However, they need to go further. And I think you've seen the size of their booth, right? They're quite big. And they have a role to nudge the industry around them, right? So they need to take that to the next level, that they need to influence all of us. If you want to be on AWS, if you want to be on Google, you should be committed to have a net zero strategy. You want to have a bit of marketing from Microsoft, this should become the way to do business with cloud providers as suppliers, right? And I think this is not yet, we haven't seen like strong commitment I think from their own sustainable journey for sure. However, from their role in the industry, we need to be also transparent about who they are and their impact, their influence, right? And they need to use that influence to accelerate the transformation. And I think this is, that would be, I think, a huge benefit for all of us.
I think you mentioned a few interesting points. One, regulation. So either you bend everybody's arm, you have to do it, or you pay for it. Or there's commercial incentive to be more sustainable. And I fear today the discussions I have with telco providers is, yes, we can do 5%, 10%. But if we want to get to 50 or 80, it's really painful and it will cost a lot of money. And if my CEO is there for the next 2 years, he'll say, well, I'll leave it to my successor.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and that might be a kind of a misconception about how cloud works, is that if you use it in the right way, there is already an incentive. Because the whole business model turns around from this, let's buy a license and do something for 2 years, to I do stuff only when I need it, or I pay for stuff only when I need it. And that in itself is already a huge incentive if you use it the right way. So there is not really the necessity to, give you a coin every time that you turn off a machine or something. It is, by design, I would say, already incentivizing the efficient usage of resources.
I mean, if we talk about the network, yes. If then you go to hardware and the 50-inch TV and the set-top box and whatever, then it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
So But yeah, do you think, and I announced this panel on LinkedIn, and you might have seen it, there was a comment saying, well, what are we talking here? Without regulation, nothing will happen. So what do you think? Is there a chance we can really move the needle in a big way, or will it not work without regulation?
So it's been proven. So I'm not even sure how can we ask this question. It's been proven that there is no sustainable transformation without having the consumer, the governance, and the business coming together to make the transition. So there is no point on asking this. Of course we need regulation. We need regulation because this is a statement that you're taking as a community, right, to go into one direction. It's not about, so we're going to punish people. I mean, we're not kids, right? Sorry, that's a bad analogy, probably. But we don't need to have this perception of we need regulation to move. But we need to make sure that there are regulations that are very clear to everyone that this is the direction. And you can't digress from it because this is how committed we need to be. So for me, it's a nonsense to think that one can come without the other. We need to have regulations around encoding technologies that are not delivering the way they should deliver. We need to have a way to say that this is how we're going to measure. This is how we reckon in the industry, because regulation will talk to greening of streaming. They will talk to AWS. They will talk to Apple, because eventually the OEMs have also their role, very important role to play into this. And I think there is no other way around, and I would want us to not see regulation as a punishment, but as more of a, thank God, there is a sign that at least all together we've finally decided that we're going into one direction, right? But
do you see it happening?
Yes, it's happening. 2024, the regulation will come to all businesses in reporting on sustainability, and this is just the beginning of it, and it's not going fast enough, probably. Okay, but it's certainly a sign. And I think when you have greening of streaming that comes to the regulation and comes to governance and say we're ready to have this conversation, and that's the role of the business here. Is the investment of the time. Again, it's not a matter of money. It's the investment of the time that say, yeah, we're ready as businesses to actually come around the table and have this engagement. And I think you've seen that in the food industry. I mean, you don't know if you read the latest book from Paul Polman, but this is enlightening. Is that they've done that 20 years ago. Why are we not doing the same? So we've been running free, no one really cared, maybe, but now I think it's the time. So in the coming 18 months, I can promise you, there will be regulation discussions, and commitment hopefully will happen, and UE will take the lead, which is going to be awesome. And I'm really proud to, if we can achieve that in that time frame.
Very good. Sebastian?
I 100% agree. I think you said a very right thing. Regulation is not a punishment. Regulation can help you achieve goals. Yeah. And that's how we should see it. I mean, we have been trying and trying individually, and obviously the outcome is not great. So I think we are way past the point where we could have tried without regulation. So we need boundaries and we need guidelines that help us get there. And if everyone runs in different directions, we will never get anywhere. So,
yeah, we're seeing some regulations show up on our RFPs that are happening regionally, and it's already forcing us to change, to adapt our stance, to make sure we're responsive to those needs, because it's driving buying decisions. And as a vendor in the space, the regulation makes us move faster.
Yeah, that's a very good thing to see, that in RFPs, 10, 15, 20% of the buying decision are now bound to sustainable topics, which is already a great move in the right direction.
Yep.
Very good. So, we're talking today, not in 18 months. What are the biggest hurdles today? Is it mindset? It doesn't seem to be availability of technology. Why are we not moving faster? Is it because these three things need to come together, or is it still not big enough in people's minds? So where is the big hurdle today? I mean, in some RFPs, why not in all?
It's a good question. I don't know what's going to jumpstart the movement faster in the short term. When I look at it from a CDN provider perspective, it is how do we take the tech that we have to bear faster to meet the commercial needs that are representing in the marketplace. You mentioned that your focus started on cost, and that led to a reduction of cost led to sustainability. Well, that's what we're seeing right now. Is there is an intersection that by making ourselves more competitive in where the market is going, we're actually able to become more sustainable. So I think there's a market influence that's happening. It's just, is it happening fast enough is really the question.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, it's. I think we already tackled that, but I think eventually we'll see more of that. It's all about partnering. So if you're not building a community that is big enough and that's moving into one direction, as we talked about, you're not making progress fast enough, right? You're not making a big enough impact. So how does our industry become a community? And this is, it has happened, for example, in the food industry. And I think this is also very key, is that stop looking at your own problems, start looking at what others have done before you and have actually been successful in transitioning into new areas, right? And if you look at the food industry, what they have done is that they put all the major competitors around the table and they say, okay, enough is enough. How do we partner up? Even though we're competing in the business, how do we partner up to go into one direction? You've seen in the content pledge in the last UN event from BBC and ITV and Channel 4 coming together and engaging themselves into a sustainable content influence strategy, right? This is, why are we not seeing more of this? And I think not only I would call out our customers and service providers across the globe to think about this, because competition, yes, of course, but you have your own unique selling point anyway. So there is no problem on moving everyone to the top, right? And the second part is the supplier. We are seeing things like greening of streaming and the impact and responsible media forum, which I think are about nudging, but it's not big enough. And I think having this responsibility where, for example, with Accedo, we have about 100 partners, and we have in our Accedo One marketplace 35 partners. I think our responsibility as a solution provider is to help all the partners that are maybe smaller companies or with one piece of the value chain to actually get there in terms of commitment. So I think we also need to be all accountable by our size and revenues, right, on the influence we can make. And it's a whole community, but I think we're getting there. And have you seen IBC? Like every day there is a company that wants to talk about what they have done and what would they have achieved in sustainability and wants to be part of the community, right? So this is becoming a thing, which is great. And we're going to see more of that if we all take our responsibility, right? So Quortex being bought out by Synamedia, that's going to be an amazing impact, right? If Synamedia takes to the next level what you're engaging yourself in, here we are. And that's going to be the community, I think, that's going to move.
Bleuenn gives the word to you, Sebastian.
Again,
a few more minutes.
Again, I agree. And I think what is really key is that we keep talking about it. And keep talking in a serious way, not in a greenwashing, number one rule of greening of streaming. It's really critical to raise awareness and to raise awareness in the right way and not sit here and say, I'm going to save the world just because I reverted the workflow. It's not, we know that we are not going to do this, but if everyone contributes his piece, we eventually will get there.
Perfect. So if you want to go on your sustainability journey, start today. There are frameworks, there are people in a community that have solutions, that have embarked and can give you some ideas where to start or where to ask questions. I hear you say, don't go alone, go together, and you will go much further than if you do it alone. Technology is getting there, solutions are there. If you want to do something, you can. There will be more things to fall in place, regulation, the operators, vendors, all together. So we have one more minute. In 5 years from now, if we have done a good job, how much CO2 have we reduced in percent? Good job.
5 years from now, so 2027. In 2027, if we look at our SBTi commitment, we will have by more than half the emissions, the sort of the supplier engagement on the emission side. So I think
More than half.
Yes,
More than 50.
that means that we will have everyone will. The most part of the impact will be already committed to reduce. That's the first thing, and then we will have obviously. For example, by 2027, we will have all our offices on renewable energy. So that's maybe 10% of 10 to 15% of impact reduced.
Okay, I have 20 seconds. John?
I don't know how to measure that in terms of our view into the overall percentage of carbon footprint. So we're going to continue to make the changes necessary that will allow for that, but I don't know how to quantify it.
You have a number?
I forgot my crystal ball. I have
Crystal ball. Okay.
Thank you, Andreas. Thank you to our panelists. Before you rush off, is there any quick questions from the floor that you'd like to throw at our panelists as a group, as a community?
There's one here in the front.
Lady at the front, just hang on for the microphone.
You've talked a lot about collaboration. What would you say to companies that continue to see sustainability as competitive advantage over a kind of a collaborative initiative?
That's an interesting question. I think they probably, you probably will get further by collaborating. So you will keep your competitive edge by collaborating. So let's say that we are working with some of our competitors around, defining what would be the audience engagement. It doesn't mean that tomorrow we're not going to be the leader of delivering premium video experience, right? We definitely need to keep what's our value prop, right? But we need to work towards getting it further and being the founder. I mean, I think you will agree that you're going to be super, proud to have been a co-founder of the greening of streaming and still continue that effort. That you will keep that USB for him and good for Quortex. And I think it will stay with him, right? But he will grow in making that becoming something bigger. So I think it's a business case. You have to collaborate to make it sustainable over time, that your differentiator stays, right?
Great, thank you.
I think we have time for one last question. Gentleman in the third row.
Thank you. Quick question to all the panelists. Do you think it's most likely at this point in time the consumer might be the ones to actually put their feet down? You've got a cost of living crisis, you've got people wanting to watch good content. Do you think it's going to take that to shift the business models for a lot of businesses to then start saying, actually, you know what, they're not going to afford to watch things, so they'll start switching off? Obviously, you see the drop-off. Do you think that's what's going to shift, and then suddenly everyone's their ears prick up and go, actually, we've got to do something about this, or is there another solution to that, do you think? Quite a difficult question, but I'm trying to gauge if it's a consumer that's going to put their feet down before anything really changes, because then the businesses will react.
I think that there is I believe it's going to be the opposite, because if you think about what we said about cloud and how to use it right, and the second you are more sustainable is the same second that you become more cost efficient. So your service ultimately will end up with probably less cost in producing it. So I think you as an end customer, there won't be a big impact on you in terms of what you will have to pay for your favorite subscription just because it's more sustainable or something. That won't happen, I guess.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's going to be driven more by, the community that is making corporate buying decisions that are going to lead to change, and that will be driven by regulation and also by the competitiveness of the commercial model that intersects with reducing costs also while introducing sustainable efficiencies. So I don't see the end subscriber, as it were, rallying together to make that change, personally.
And
I have a bit of a different point of view there. I think as an industry, you need to not sit on your success story for 20 years and think that you've came there, right? So disruption is happening, and if you're not looking carefully, you're going to lose that business. So if you look at WaterBear Network, I don't know if you're familiar with this video-on-demand service, they call the sustainable Netflix nowadays. Disruption will come, and it's already happening. And if you're not, as a broadcaster, as a content provider, making sure that you create the interest for and match the needs of your stakeholder, which is the end consumer, you're going to be kicked out. So I do think you should be super careful about not moving fast enough to actually address the audience demands. And I am certainly seeing this. I think this is actually a Dutch service originally from the Off the Fence group, and they're growing fast. And I would say, I think the audience will drive this as well.
Thank you all very much, and thanks for those questions and the answers to the panel. So if you'd like to continue the discussion and the debate, do meet up with our speakers on their booth. They're all here in Hall 5, and it's a good start to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Thanks for being here.
thank you.